I see you're in your office. Okay.
It's on your end, Mark.
Yeah, it's live. We're live.
Okay. Great. I'm going to close that down. Thank you for turning on the recording. I'm going to admit all. Here we go.
Thank you, Sam. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special meeting of the Board of Directors of the Oregon Country Fair. Our meeting is being live streamed on YouTube and is being hosted here in the virtual world of Zoom, and it will be recorded. I'd like to invite anyone who wants to participate in tonight's meeting by sharing during member input to join us here in Zoom. If you'd like to use the chat function to have discussions, please join us on YouTube, which is where the chat is enabled. The chat in Zoom will only be used for raising hands. Board, officers, staff members, and our invited guest, Dr. Cooley, please keep your videos on. To all members and guests, please turn your video off when we invite you to share during member input. You can turn your cameras on so we can see your faces if that's what you'd like. But for now, board officers and staff, please, board officers and staff, please keep your cameras on. We called tonight's meeting because, in the changing landscape in which we find ourselves, I think we've overused the phrase unprecedented time. Also a reminder, I didn't say this, please make sure you keep your microphones muted. So cameras off and microphones muted for everyone who's not sharing at the moment. We've overused the phrase unprecedented times, but we had known when we set out with our vaccine policy in November that we would likely have to readdress. We did state in the policy that it was subject to change at any time. And as we're watching the landscape change, we have to address how we welcome people onto our land. So in November 1st, when we created the policy, there were statewide restrictions and mandates. We created a conservative policy that reflected those mandates. We didn't know where we'd be when it came time to open main camp. And we probably knew that we were going to have to make changes as we progressed towards the event. We did make some adjustments in March. And then in April, when all the mandates lifted, we were kind of left without a rudder. We didn't know exactly what to do. We are living in a world where day to day and week to week, we're seeing different public health information. We're seeing cases rise. Hopefully we'll see cases fall, but we're also considering a world in which we were in this position where we had to wonder if we wouldn't hold our in-person event or if we would try the undertaking of holding a masked event. I think it's important to recognize that throughout this policy creation, we have known that we might have to get looser, we might have to get tighter with what we do to ensure health and safety and inclusivity of this event. So at this time, tonight's meeting is to consider a single motion, a motion brought by Spirit, which you'll have a chance to read in a moment, to change some of the language in our current policy. And we're going to spend tonight looking at some data. We're going to get some opinions on what it really means to be living right now in May and June and July in Lane County. So cases may be going up, but the public health picture has changed. And we must, as we've always said, re-examine this policy as we're leading into main camp. So tonight's meeting is, as a special meeting, it's going to have a slightly different format than other board meetings. It's a single topic. We're not going to do announcements right now. We'll start with a quick agenda review. So we're going to have old business. I will have Spirit read the motion, just the wording of the new motion. Then we're going to give Ann Cooley, Dr. Ann Cooley, the medical director for RockMed, a moment to explain her position as the medical director. Corey is our new operations manager. I'd like to give Corey a moment to explain the operationalizing of this procedure, this policy. And then we're going to open to member input. Because we knew how many people would likely want to share member input on this topic, we asked for member input in writing. We did get probably at least 100 letters and email for the board, maybe more. We can get a final number if we're able to do that. We can try for that. And that was the primary mode of member input for tonight. It gave the board a chance to read all of that, cogitate on it, kind of separate out what the important pieces of this decision-making were. Tonight, we'll have 15 minutes for further member input. That will be 30 seconds for each person, 1 round each. We'll talk a little bit more about how that's going to work when we get to member input. Then we're going to do board discussion. That will be also 15 minutes, and each board member will have about 1 minute to speak. And then we will vote. We'll do a meeting evaluation, and then the closing out of our meeting, which as usual is going to be the next board meeting announcement, date, and a president's piece. Do we have any needs to amend or review that agenda? Seeing none, that brings us to tonight's old business. Spirit, will you please read the motion? Just read the text of the motion that you have on the table?
Yes. And okay, so I won't read the preface of it, but maybe we can put the link up so folks can have that and I can speak to it a little bit more.
It's on the .net site.
Okay, good. I just wanted easy access for people. Okay. So this is the motion with the changes included. So the safety plan internally for credentialed Fair Family. OCF will require all members, volunteers, artists, crafters, performers, and vendors, as well as their accompanying children ages 5 and up, to provide proof of full COVID-19 vaccination as defined by the CDC. This includes everyone attending with a worker day pass, SO pass, VIP pass, and trade pass. Children 4 years of age and under are not required to be vaccinated. And then should I read all three in one rather than 3 different motions, correct? So then the safety plan for the public, for our patrons. OCF will require all public attendees to provide proof of full COVID-19 vaccination as defined by the CDC, with the option for a religious or medical exemption in compliance with the ADA regulations, in the form of a negative PCR COVID-19 test administered by a licensed test provider, laboratory, or healthcare provider 24 hours prior to the date of entry in order to attend the fair in 2022. Children under 5 years old are not required to be vaccinated. Attendees without vaccinations, these are for our public, patrons. Attendees unable to be vaccinated will be required to show proof of a negative PCR COVID-19 test taken within 24 hours prior to the event attendance. This applies only to those who have a religious exemption or a medical exemption in compliance with the ADA regulations and are able to provide proof in accordance with OHA specifications. Children under 5 years old are not required to be vaccinated and are not required to provide a negative COVID test. And that is it. So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I saw Sandra's hand go up.
Okay.
So Sandra. Okay, Dr. Cooley.
Okay, let me unmute myself. I'm going to start by just introducing myself because up until this point, I've had the luxury of not being very much of a public face in the organization. My name is Ann Cooley. I am a board certified emergency medicine physician. I have been practicing emergency medicine in the Eugene, Springfield, and most recently Cottage Grove area for the last 10 years. And this is actually my 8th year this year as the medical director for Rock Medicine, which for those who don't know is actually Whitebird's event medicine arm. So we are the fundraising event medicine arm of the organization that provides healthcare at events across the state, but our biggest event every year is the country fair. So when we talk about Whitebird at the country fair, that's us. And I am their medical director and have been, like I said, for going on 8 years now. So I want to open my remarks this evening by making it very clear that this is not my personal opinion. I am speaking as a medical expert. I have spent all week this week in meetings with the medical director for Whitebird's clinic and Lane County Public Health. And the remarks that I'm making this evening are in accordance with the recommendations from both of those experts and organizations as well. So I want to first say, I wholeheartedly support vaccination. I am vaccinated, I'm boosted. As a medical provider, I think if you attend the country fair this year and you are not vaccinated as you possibly can be, you're doing yourself a personal disservice. So please understand that this comes from a place of absolutely supporting vaccination. But as I have said repeatedly to the board and others, we cannot keep COVID out of the fair this year. And this was reiterated in my conversations with Lane County Public Health. COVID is coming to the fair. This means that if you are going to attend the country fair this year, excuse me? Oh,
I think someone accidentally opened their mic. Go
okay.
ahead.
I was
Dr.
like, what? Okay. So this means if you're coming to the country fair this year, what I would recommend to you, if I were your medical provider, is that you should assume you're going to be exposed to COVID. And you should do everything in your personal power to protect yourself. If that knowledge makes it feel unsafe for you to attend the event, then I would encourage you to think long and hard about whether or not it makes sense to attend the event this year. But that said, vaccination does. So two things. First, from a public health and medical expertise perspective, we absolutely want to commend the board on having a vaccination policy. So that's the first thing. It is a lot of events that at this point in time have gotten rid of any policy altogether. And public health wanted to make it very clear that they were very much appreciative of the fact that this organization was adopted a vaccine policy and is continuing it through the event this summer. So that's the first thing. But we are all in agreement that that policy should be as simple, straightforward, streamlined, and universally understood as possible. And what that means is that we shouldn't overcomplicate it by requiring things that other events have not required up until this point. So speaking from a personal health perspective, please get every vaccine you can get. Speaking from a public health and event safety perspective, when we weigh these things, any type of policy, and by policy, we mean not what we're recommending, not what we're encouraging everyone to do, not what we're making fun, but what we're going to enforce. We need to look at the benefit on one side of a teeter-totter, and we need to look at the expense in our resources, our human capital, our time and effort on the other side of the teeter-totter. The benefit when it comes to transmission, which is what we care about, of requiring people to be boosted in order to attend the fair is extremely small. And I have confirmed that as recently as today with Lane County Public Health. Now, if you're boosted and you get COVID, the benefit to you is enormous. It's been shown to keep you out of the hospital, not 100%, but it's been shown to help you personally. But the benefit of it preventing transmission, extremely small. The benefit of requiring people to prove or somehow justify their reason for having a medical or religious exemption is zero. There is no public health study that anyone can point to that shows that this does anything to make an event safer. Now, I do feel that it's important to point out that no one on this board is unaware of my position on this topic. I was very clear when this policy was written initially that I felt that this requirement should be kept as simple, straightforward, and consistent with other events as possible. That way, we can spend our human capital and our energy on things that are going to make a bigger impact with our event safety. That position has not changed. That was reflected when I spoke in the COVID committee and asked them to write the policy to state that a primary series of vaccines would be required. Keep it simple. The board decided to go a different route and to not listen. I don't know if it was to not listen to me, to decide that y'all know better than me. But you did what I did not recommend. And you added a bunch of exemptions and boosters, and you complicated things. And now I am back here in front of the board, having spent a week off in meetings in preparation for this meeting to reinforce, with the backing of the Whitebird Clinic and Lane County Public Health, to ask you again, please don't overcomplicate this. The benefit is not there. I know we want it to be, but it's not. There are many other things that we should be focusing on that are more beneficial. And lastly, and I think importantly, I need to state that my relationship with this organization is based on trust. I trust you with my medical license. I carry extra liability insurance because of the risk that being a medical director for this organization presents to me in my license. You trust me that I will oversee a kick-ass medical crew and will provide fun and effective medical care. I trusted that you would listen to my expert guidance. And you didn't. I wanted to walk away from this week. But I know if I walk away, there is no medical coverage for the country fair. So I spent my time on meetings. I made sure my points were consistent and supported. And I'm coming to you here tonight to let you know that I have some expectations of this organization going forward. I expect that if you would like me to continue as your medical director, that you will follow my medical direction. Simplify this policy, change the policy so that it states that a primary series of vaccines are required for anyone who is a volunteer vendor, private party attendee. And that for the public, it states the exact same thing, a primary series of vaccines is required. And if you are unvaccinated, a testing exemption at 24 hours. I will tell you, Lane County Public Health actually suggested extending that time frame from 24 to 48 hours, but I told them that we weren't really interested in facilitating that. So I recommend that we keep it at 24. But no one needs to prove to this organization why they're not vaccinated. That's their business. And asking people to bring some form to show when they come in is going to do the one thing that they were absolutely emphatic that we not do at my public health meeting, which is slow public entry into the event. The risk to the public health of the surrounding community if we slow entry into our event far outweighs the benefit of requiring these things. We owe a service to the community of Veneta and Lane County in addition to our members who choose to attend fair this year. I also expect going forward that if there are decisions or policies to be made with regards to COVID-19, I will be consulted and I will direct them. If the board isn't comfortable with that, that's fine. Absolutely zero hard feelings. Y'all can Fleetwood Mac it again and go your own way. But you will do it without me. I worked too long and too hard, and I assumed too much risk to not be listened to and respected. And those are my comments with regards to this policy. Oh, I should also mention, unfortunately, there's no one to replace me at Whitebird. So I have been assured by the clinic and the organization that if I step down, if I'm uncomfortable proceeding, they are uncomfortable proceeding. And with that, I will thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Cooley. Corey?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ann Cooley, for all of that. The facts that I have to present tonight are on the ground facts about how much time we spend per person checking the vaccine and banding the individual. So specifically, this has to do with the public. We are planning to have 12 people checking and banding. And if we are checking people and spending a minute per person, that's 60 people per hour. So 12 people checking times 60 people per hour is 720 people per hour that we are able to admit into our gates. It will take us 8 hours of nonstop checking to process 5,760 people roughly. And that number comes from the fact that we can expect about half of the public attendance coming by vehicle, due to the numbers that I saw on the 50th. So we can expect about 5,000 people coming by vehicle, not by LTD, that we need to process. We cannot have the public waiting 8 hours in the lot to get into our event. If we cut that time in half, that's 12 checkers at 120 people per hour. That's 12 times 120, which equals 1,440 people per hour being checked. It will take us 4 hours at 30 seconds a person. And we are checking, and not only checking, but banding as well, as we have a public wristband to put on their wrist. It will take us 4 hours to admit 5,760 people. Okay. The CDC could change what up-to-date means in between now and fair, causing us to further tell people no who become eligible for something and do not take the recommendation. Will we say no to everyone with 3 if 4 becomes up to date? Another fact, the process to adhere to board policy on the ground. If it's not 3 on their card or 2 JJ, we have to crunch the age of the individual first, which means we have to look at their date of birth and figure out how old they are or ask them their age. Then we move to the eligibility categories. Based on age, there's either a no, a 5-month or a 4-month eligibility category, specifically just for Pfizer alone. After that, we have to determine the last shot that was given, crunch the date on that versus the date of the day that we are crunching that number to see why they had not received a 3rd shot. It almost takes me as long as I would expect to do the checking to even explain this, and it could go deeper than what I've just laid out. This is just kind of a basic foreground for what this could entail as far as the amount of time that we spend on the ground checking certain people who have one-offs and things from other countries or World Health Organization shots that are approved by the WHO, or a number of other types of vaccinations from say Canada, which only produces a QR code. So we plan on processing 15 to 17,000 people, staff and vendors on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday before our event. I personally at JYD have stood on Wednesdays, which is our heavy day, and seen almost 10,000 people come on the property in that single day alone. We have 8 checkers and trotters doing the checking. At 30 seconds per person, that's 8 times 120, which gives us 960 people per hour checking through that process. It will take us 10 hours to process 9,600 people. We cannot let those people wait in a 10-hour line in the lot. Stamping hands on Wednesday and Thursday in trotters will cut down the time a little bit, as we won't be banning them necessarily. But we're really striving for a 10 to 20 second per person checking time, or else our public or our staff and vendors could be in a 4 to 10 hour line. You know, a fact that I think we all know is some booths are not coming because of the policy as a whole. We know that. But also some booths aren't coming because they are not boosted, and being told that they are not welcome this year because they are choosing to not take the recommendation of, and therefore are not up to date. And that furthermore, I just want to point out that the definition of recommendation in the Oxford Dictionary is defined as a suggestion or proposal as to the best course of action, especially one put forward by an authoritative body. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Kirsten, did you have anything you wanted to add at this time?
No, I think we're doing great so far. I will raise my hand if I have something to say.
Okay. So this brings us to member input. Because we offered a different sort of dynamic period of reaching out to the board by email, we're going to do member input differently tonight. We're going to offer anyone who would like to speak 30 seconds each for 15 minutes total. The chat remains for raising hands only, and please don't raise hands with the little icon. That doesn't enable me to keep you in the order in which you got your hand raised. Sam will be keeping time for us. He has a clock on his phone that changes color as you get closer. It is your responsibility as the member who is sharing to keep track of that clock, so that we don't waste time on saying, hey, wait, your time's up, 1 more second, 5 more seconds. We're just gonna mute at 30 seconds. So it's your responsibility to watch the clock. I know that's not a lot of time, but we really have given having that 10-day period of receiving emails. We've had a lot of members reach out to us. So please keep yourselves as brief as possible. We're gonna do 15 minutes. Theoretically, that's 30 members. We've already got a bunch in the stack. So that brings us to our first person to share, which is Annie. Annie, are you still there? Then we'll go instead to Emma.
I think we're muted by the host, actually.
There we go. Sorry, it was disabled. I am Annie and I am here, but Emily can go first if that's
Go ahead, Annie.
she was ready.
Go for it, Annie.
Hey, I am Annie Sway. I've worked Peachgate 9 to 3 for the last almost 9 or 10 years now. And I just wanted to really quickly, like without a doubt, I am in support of Dr. Cooley in spirit. We have had insane incidents without vaccinations, let alone boosters, and it would create a hazard, in my opinion, both by bottlenecking and creating people just, you know, surrounding each other, and also the incidents are going.
Okay. Sorry, Annie, that was just the first time we muted someone. Everyone, that's just how it's going to roll tonight. Emma, you're up.
Okay. If we cannot have an event where the likelihood of succumbing to a system-wide debilitating and deadly virus is next to zero, we should not be having an event. If we cannot honor the humanity of immunocompromised people, we should not be having an event. I think the operations manager should cancel the fair with support from the board. And I think that Dr. Cooley, you should walk away as to not enable this ableist event.
Dean,
I've been vaccinated and boosted and believe the vaccine works. However, the fair's current policy is an outlier. I checked a dozen festivals today. Northwest Folk Life, vaccination required, no boost. Kate Wolf Festival, vaccination required, no boost. Thing Festival, Port Townsend, no vaccination. Oregon Jamboree, no vaccination. String Summit, no vaccination. Brit Festival, no vaccination. Cali Roots Festival in California, no vaccination.
thanks, Dean. Sorry. Bobby Joe?
Yeah. Basically, I'm with the motion as written, and I think a little simplifying is great. But if anything, just allocate more people, get the job done. But we have a job to do, and that is to assert public safety.
Maura and Ichabod.
Yes, hello. When Santana played at Matthew Knight Arena, 4 people checking their vaccinations. All they wanted was a card and a license to match, and only 2 vaccinations were required. Autzen Stadium put 40,000 people into Autzen Stadium with checking only the 2 required vaccinations and nothing else. They also did it with only 6 people.
Is this a different Annie, or is this the Annie we had go first?
It's not me.
Okay, so there's another Annie out there. Going once, going twice. Okay, the Country Fair Food Committee.
Oh, hey, my name is Dave. Sorry about the name. I think that happened on a botched meeting attempt. But anyway, I'm here representing myself, and but I am a part of the food committee, and I just wanted to speak to what Corey said. I know of nobody of the 20 booths and carts that are not attending this year that has made it known to us that it's an issue of the booster. And my feelings around what Dr. Cooley.
Sorry, that was 30 seconds. I'm sorry. Debbie Bloom.
Hi, I'm an artist. I've done 2 festivals since the pandemic. This fall of last year, February of this year, we just did masks, and I didn't hear of any COVID, numbers per se. So just a consideration, simple.
Jennifer Lamp.
Hello, we have 3 speakers. I'll start. Please choose inclusion over fear-driven policies that lessen the humanity of our fellow citizens. At this point, even visiting the White House doesn't require masks or vaccines or tests. People have made the best medical decision for their own bodies after being advised and informed. It is well understood that transmission of COVID is not stopped by vaccination, and breakthrough cases happen regularly. It is shameful to disallow those who are not vaccinated to your set of standards, have undue hardships, or miss out on participating in fair completely. Next speaker.
As an artist, all the art shows I've done this year had no vaccine requirements, no masks, no questions at all. Art shows state that they're following CDC guidelines. Whole Earth Festival, a huge 3-day event, just happened without any restrictions. Coachella Music Festival, air travel, Holt Center are all without masks and mandates. Some indoor art shows require masks, vaccines, or a current COVID test for the unvaccinated.
Next speaker. We propose a policy of inclusivity. Let's make this even more simple and extend the same policy for all the people and the vendors to be the same. Last fall, Emma attended a show that had Creative Labs on site. They build each individual insurance. This is the safest option for everyone. Could significantly help reduce transmission and the workload for the country fair.
Thank you.
Very nicely done, you three. Rolling those 3 speakers in 30 seconds each. I can tell you practiced that.
You didn't.
Justin and Travis. We can't hear you, Justin. Not yet. Try again. Can we hear you now? We'll come back to you, Justin, okay? Just give 1 more second. Okay. Just give me a wave when you think you've got it figured out. After Justin is Danny.
Hi, I just want to say that I support the board and in requiring vaccinations. And after listening to Dr. Cooley, making it simple does make sense. I really didn't quite understand the exemptions anyway. I don't really support testing out. I believe everybody should be vaccinated that's on the site. And that's all. And I'll leave my time for someone else. Thank you.
Thanks. Kim?
Hi, Kim from Community Village, retired RN. I agree with the medical piece of this, but I'm a little bit upset by the format that this is the way this is going down. I asked what the rationale for this decision was, and I was told it was just operational and not medical. Therefore, I wasn't able to send the kind of email I would have otherwise. Check.
Sean.
Hi, I just want to say I support the vaccination policy and I support Dr. Cooley's updated recommendation, but I want to provide another perspective here. And just what I can't understand is how a monumental decision like this can be made without consulting with the coordinators. This year is already a heavy enough lift. There's been a lot of outrage in our fair community surrounding the policy, which has been very challenging to manage as a leader at the fair. We've had to turn away crew, entertainers, crafters, et cetera. And these people have been replaced in many cases. So it's too late to change that now. And that's another repercussion we're gonna have to deal with this change in the policy.
Asha?
Hi, basically whatever you guys do is what you guys are gonna do. But what I'm wondering is how Whitebird is going to deal with people that suddenly show COVID symptoms. Right now in California, we are on such an incredible roll right now with tons of COVID. I don't know what it's like in Eugene, but I'm just wondering what it looks like when someone has COVID symptoms and gets taken to Whitebird. Thank you.
iPhone Leah. Leah, are you still with us?
I am with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. So I am a 20-year veteran of the recycling crew, and in support of making this as streamlined as possible, it was stated that medically there is no increasable risk for allowing religious and medical exemptions for people who buy entrance to the fair. Why is that not also being provided to staff members who uphold the operational possibility of fair in the first place? So, you know, people like recycling crew and security, why are...
Thanks, 30 seconds. Crystalline?
Hi, everybody. I just want to say, yes, people have a personal choice to attend the event, but the local community that surrounds the event does not get to decide if they want to attend, let alone host it. OCF has always been an intentional community that has historically strived to show a different way of interacting with the world around us, that it is possible for individuals to be kind and caring to others. OCF is being presented as if everything possible is being done to keep as many people as possible safe, yet slowly chipping away at the original motion is literally the opposite of that.
Thank you, Crystalline. And now Justin.
Hear me now?
We can hear you now, Justin. Fantastic.
Yay. Right on. New computer. Sorry. So I think this is a foregone conclusion. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time on whether or not you're going to decide what you're going to decide tonight. My focus is from booth registration standpoint and the reality of our crew and the booth folk that are out there on the landscape that have now made choices and is going to throw this event. I think for everybody that is not going to, that might come because of this change, you may have equally or more people that are not going to attend because of the change in this policy, therefore throwing the booths into.
That's all I have on the stack now. We have 4 minutes left. Is there any other member who would like to speak? We are always willing to go under time and move on before our stated time limit. Doesn't get to happen very often at our meetings, but in this moment where I'm letting someone else decide they'd like to speak, I'd like to let you know that our new membership secretary, Stephen Dyerkoff, just did the tally. We've received 108 emails from membership in the last 10 days about feelings and opinions and facts and data on this topic. We've read, I can speak for myself and not the rest of the board, but we've read every one of those letters. Amy.
Hi, I would like to cede my time to Justin so he can finish what he was saying.
Okay.
Wow, what a gift. Thank you so much. I think in the challenge that we face right now is, as we've already made commitments to crew and to booths, is that if this change in policy, although I think it's going to pass, is going to put us in a position where we may have to reevaluate all of our booth allocations that we've done and LOAs and vacancies and absences. This impact could be very substantial to us getting and being able to pull off the event if a lot of people choose to change their position at where they're attending or not attending based on the reversal of this motion. I'm really sad that we couldn't have done this the right way 2 months ago.
Okay, it appears that in the meantime, I've lost my timer. Sam, are you gone from the meeting?
No, I'm here.
Oh,
Can
there
you
you
not
are.
see me?
Okay, I couldn't
Sorry.
see you.
I was doing
Richard?
this.
Richard?
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's good. I wasn't planning on making any kind of a discussion here with you folks. I sent a letter in earlier, and I really hope you read all those emails that came in. A couple of really pertinent things came in this morning already. So that's pretty soon before this meeting. But this whole meeting is pretty illuminating to me. And I'm an old time 40-year, I don't know how many year person here.
Thanks, Richard. So with the close of member input, let's do this last one. Adam, you get 30 seconds, Adam.
Craft inventory coordinator. I just want to say yes to Sean, yes to Justin. Talk to coordinators about these things. Talk to coordinators when you're making policies. Communication is lacking in that area. And understand that late changes to a policy this substantial is going to create serious difficulties, especially with folks who have already done a substantial amount of work to prepare for the fair.
Thank you. So thanks, folks, for sticking with that 30-second hard time limit. I know it's a new format. I know it might have felt really abrupt, but it was the way the board felt like we could get through tonight's meeting and give everyone a chance and hear all the information we needed to hear. So this brings us to board input. We're going to have 15 minutes for this as well. We'll start with 1 minute each. We might have time for a second round if we're super efficient. Do we have any board members who would spirit?
Yeah.
Sam, are you willing to? Perfect, thank you.
What is Sam doing?
Timing still.
Okay, since I made the motion, can I just, I wanted to give a little bit of a preface. You guys, are you
Wait,
all
Spirit?
read what?
Spirit, you still just have the 1 minute.
Okay, so you could go into the link and see what I typed in to preface the motions to begin with. This came with great consideration, and it was actually after the coordinator meeting and when operations really started to get going that I realized that there was an issue. And talking with staff, just casually realizing what all they were going through, I went back and I looked at Dr. Cooley's advice and realized, well, I knew at the time even, but the fact of the matter is that I began to see that policy is only as good as the ability to be able to implement it. And it was very clear that we were going to run into major issues here. So I went out on a limb as soon as I found out, as quickly as I could, and I made the motion. I was hoping that we would have more time. Justin, you know, I called you. I know that this is an inconvenience. The board has stated that everything is subject to change, and I wish we could have done this right the first time, but I do think it's imperative to the future. We have to have this event, and I think it's imperative that we make it as simple as possible and take Dr. Cooley's advice. I appreciate it, as well as the patience. And okay, I think yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Spirit. Do we have any more board members who would like to speak? I find that hard to, oh, John.
So I lost my brother to COVID last week. I held his hand as he left. This has become much more personal for me since then. I am becoming increasingly convinced that the fair is not doesn't care about COVID. We may as well call it the COVID country fair as far as I'm concerned. When I go into the office and office staff is not wearing masks, and I learn later that there was an incident of COVID at the office, and I don't know what to say about that. When I go to a coordinators meeting on site and there's only 4 people wearing masks and we're in close proximity, and we have a public that we are encouraging to wear masks, and our own staff is not willing, and our own coordinators are not willing to model the behavior. I'm totally against changing the policy. I don't think it's far enough.
Sue?
I read every single email. When I tell you that I'm of two minds, when I confine my mind over this, Dr. Cooley, I appreciate you and I respect you. And I know that, I'm sorry, the words are escaping me, but I know how this is going to affect the booth community. I'm sure it's going to hit our volunteers. It's going to cause, changing it is going to cause a lot more chaos. And I hope we are aware that it's going to cause more chaos. And I hope that people can be patient as we would wade through the chaos that this is going to create. I'm all for vaccinations. I'm getting my second booster shortly before fair, so I have the best possible protection, and I'm done.
Come on.
George.
Well, vaccination never promised immunity. What vaccination promised was if you contract this disease, the likelihood of you surviving it is greater. The likelihood of you not dying from it is greater. And I think that people that have been vaccinated and the vaccination itself has really kept that promise. I am very much so in favor of maximizing the simplicity of what has to happen for people to get admission to the fair this year. I think it's a very critical year. I think people have to come to the fair. I think they have to have a good time. I think it has to go easy. I don't think it's going to do us any good to have this kinds of disturbances that are going to be inevitable in the parking lot if we hang on to these regulations. I feel very strongly that letting go of the booster requirement for our staff is appropriate. I do believe that it's appropriate for our staff to be vaccinated because the circumstances are different for us than there are for the general public. We're living together, tent by tent, cheek by jaw throughout the event. And but I do believe that the public should be able to come freely. Thank you.
Thanks, George. AJ?
Yeah, so much like our country, this topic has us completely divided. I have read well over 100 emails. I'm talking into hundreds of emails that have come in from different various people. We are divided on this. And this is far from an easy decision that this board has to make. We are trying our best to make the decisions considering we are completely divided as an organization and as a community on this. We are trying our best here. And I want to see you guys all in 2023, 2024, 2025. And I have to weigh all of the feedback that I'm getting from our medical community, as well as the outside community. So for those of you guys who are going to hate this decision whatever decision we make, I am sorry, I apologize, but we are divided on this and we just have to do the best we can.
Sam? Are you able to time yourself, Sam?
I'm going to try. I have rarely encountered a policy dilemma that puts so many of my core values in conflict with one another. We've heard good points on both sides. We've heard a lot of misinformation as well. The science is clear. Vaccines and boosters help to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and keep our community safe. Science only gets us so far, though, and there are values other than safety. Individual autonomy, operational logistics, the governance board model, and the love we share as members of this vitally important community all carry weight in my decision tonight. No matter how this vote comes out, many people who I admire and whose perspectives are valid and valued will be disappointed. From the start, I have stood for the most stringent policy that we can reasonably implement. I have grudgingly come to accept that the safety benefits of requiring a booster do not outweigh the logistical challenges of retaining that requirement. For that reason, I intend to cast my vote in favor of amending the policy. Thank you.
Lisa?
Hello, everyone. On November 1st, 2021, the board unanimously approved the policy requiring proof of full and up-to-date COVID-19 vaccination for all persons on site who are eligible as defined by the CDC to receive a COVID-19 vaccine. This was done with the specific intention of protecting our ability to hold a fair in 2022. Many fair family were thankful for this policy, and many have made their plans according to this policy. If the vaccination requirement is relaxed, many will choose not to come. We will lose volunteers, crafters, food booths, and others who made their decision to attend the fair based on the current policy. If the vaccination requirement is not relaxed, many will choose not to come. Either way, we lose volunteers. Either way, people will be upset. The board is in an impossible position. There is no pleasing anyone. Whether or not to relax the vaccine requirement is an incredibly difficult decision, but no matter what the board decides tonight, Whitebird will not abandon the fair.
Paxton?
I wasn't quite done.
It was a minute. It was a minute. If we have more time, we can go to second rounds.
The board has received a lot of correspondence.
If we have more, Lisa, if we have more time, we'll go to second rounds.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear that.
That's okay, sorry. Paxton?
I'm in favor of simplifying it, Dr. Cooley's recommendations. I've come to believe that calculating boosters is not efficient nor needed and is very problematic on an operational level. I'm fully vaxxed and boosted and still caught COVID. I think it's going to be a problem at the fair, mostly after the fair, because people won't know it until they get home. So that's what I came to realize partly. Anyway, the other thing is I think that if we don't drop the booster, I think if we drop the booster policy, we will generate more volunteers than we will lose. That's my own opinion. Thank you.
Sandra?
Yes, I'm going to support this policy. You know, when we originally made the policy, we were in a very different circumstance then, and trying to work our way through. And we always knew that we'd have to respond to facts on the ground. And I think facts have changed. They talk about this latest wave peaking somewhere in early June. So by July, we could be in another one of those, what I call honeymoon periods, where you can go out and do things. And I don't think there's, while there's always going to be risk around COVID, each person is going to have to decide what that is for themselves. And I think we've gotten fairly good at assessing risk these days. And we do have to have an event. It's important to our community and our people, and we need to do it. And, you know, everybody has to make their own decision. So thank you. I do support this.
Thanks. So I'm the last of the board members to take a first round. If I were voting for my own personal position, it would be to require boosters, because the people we're talking about have already had 2 shots. I believe that boosters work. I believe the science that shows that the shots may wane. I believe we could have made the policy clear, and we could have operationalized a clear policy had we recognized how unclear it was. I believe we could have made a just and equitable system had we recognized that. At this point, though, I think we need to listen to our operations, listen to our staff. I wish we had enough time to incorporate booth reg and coordinators, like real on the ground data into this, but I think my vote's going to reflect what I believe is in the best interest of the organization, which is what I think my responsibility is as a board member, as opposed to what my personal opinion about public health is. So I'm going to support the motion. So let's do second rounds. We have 3 minutes, and let's do 30 seconds each. Spirit, Lisa, and AJ. 30 seconds.
Yeah, I want to remind us that this is not about removing the full vaccination. I feel like people are acting that way. We, as a board, a governance board, are hearing from our operations, from our staff members, that we have ran into an issue. It is our job to support those on the ground to make sure that this event happens successfully, as safe as possible. We've heard from our medical director. I mean, who else can you hear from? I know people will be upset, but I think I can't even fill a crew right now. So I mean, I'm telling you, I really hope that we can do our job as a governance board, walk our talk, and support operations.
Spirit?
You mean me?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I mean, Lisa. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So again, there really is no pleasing everyone. No matter what the board decides, people are going to be unhappy. And no matter what the board decides tonight, Whitebird will still be at the fair. Again, the board has received a lot of correspondence on both sides of the issue. I have read every single email. Everyone feels passionately about what community and inclusivity means to them. Am I done?
Yeah, that's time.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. This is new for the board too, folks. We haven't done time limits in board meetings, so we're feeling just as confined by the time limits as you guys are. AJ, second round, 30 seconds.
I want to just take time to say thank you to everybody that reached out through email or letters. We did read them. I did read them. It means a lot. And if you're disappointed by any of the decisions that we make, you know, I want you to know that I truly believe that the board itself is working better to try our best to meet everybody's needs. And this is just one of those instances where I don't know that we're going to end up being able to do so. Thank you.
Thanks. John?
Yeah, I mean, this motion is more than just removing the booster requirement. The motion also changes the language relating to children under the age of 5. The CDC is poised to approve a vaccine for children under 5. And I think it's disingenuous to say that we're trying to prevent the spread of COVID if we exempt children under 5 from the vaccine that will become available. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Sam?
I suggested the change regarding children, and the reason that I did is because I worry about a situation where the CDC approves the vaccine for children in the days before our event, and then every family with a small child is in technical violation of the policy, and we have to figure out what to do with that situation at the last minute. I don't want to have to scramble. I think that we had already been prepared not to have vaccinated small children under 5s, and I think that it's the right way to go. Thank you.
I'm going to take a second to ask a direct question to Ann Cooley. Are you still with us, Ann? Dr. Cooley?
I am.
You had said in your presentation tonight that you would like the exemptions language to be different.
Yes.
If that's not on tonight's motion, that's not in the suggested motion tonight, is that if we pass tonight's motion and we don't change the exemption language, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with leaving it there, but I'm not okay with security being asked to enforce people filling out forms justifying their exemptions to the Oregon Country Fair. You know, if I decide to go meet with my doctor to deal with something in my uterus, I don't expect any organization to ask me to fill out a form about why I need to do that. You know, you get a right to your personal privacy. And I understand that it's frustrating that the public gets a testing exemption. I think it's important to just state that that's a federal legal requirement. You know, that's a federal law. The American with Disabilities Act and civil liberties legislation allow for religious and medical freedoms in this country to public events. And so I made it very clear to the board that I can't be the medical director of an event that's in violation of the American with Disabilities Act. So like that's why we have a testing exemption for the public. I mean, yeah, sure. In a perfect world, would everyone be vaccinated? Would everyone be boosted? Would it be safe? Yes. But even if everybody was vaccinated and boosted, people are going to get COVID at fair this year. Can't prevent it. The only way to prevent it is to not have fair. And my understanding is that essentially there are logistic reasons that if we didn't have fair this year, there could potentially be no fair going forward. So, I have already resigned as the medical director of Rock Medicine, but I have stayed through Country Fair because of the commitment I feel to making this happen this year. I really want to support this organization. I don't want to put the fair at risk long-term. And like, that's how passionately I feel about this group. But I also have to set healthy boundaries for myself. I can't make medical recommendations, have them ignored, and find out 2 months later that something entirely different happened, and then spend a week of my life trying to figure out why I wasn't listened to. That's not something I'm willing to keep doing. So that's why I was pretty emphatic tonight about where I'm at.
I still am not sure I have clarity there. If we continue with the language for that,
I want any exemption requirement removed. So if you need to add that to your motion, I would request that you do that.
Spirit?
I can make an amendment to the motion that removes the words both for the patrons and the family. That's the words that say and are able to provide proof in accordance with OHA specifications. So that would remove the demand for that, because we're not going to be able to check anybody's letter from whether it's a pastor or a doctor. So we can't even prove it. So we may as well remove it.
So just removing the phrase "and would require proof."
Yes.
Sandra, as the second, do you support that amendment?
I do.
Okay. Well, that brings us to a vote.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm hearing two different things here that I feel will weigh on me if I don't ask. We've got Dr. Cooley, the only doctor that I know that's spoken to us, so I take her expertise very seriously here, and also with her as our medical director. And then I hear board member Lisa talking about Whitebird still being there. So what exactly? I'm really kind of confused because I think it's important we have a medical director, and yeah. So I don't know. Can Dr. Cooley, can you clarify for me?
I can't. Lisa will have to clarify what she means by that statement, because I was in a meeting this morning with the head of the Whitebird Clinic, and I don't know what she's talking about.
Kimmo, we've got Kimmo's hand, and then we'll move to reading the motion one last time.
I just have a clarification. You just asked Sandra about the amended motion, but didn't Paxton second the original motion?
No.
No, Sandra did.
Thank you.
There was some confusion because I think Paxton said second, but then Lisa said, I saw Sandra's hand first, and then Sandra said.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so Spirit, will you please read the motion as amended?
Okay, so I'm going to read it from beginning to end. So our safety plan internally for Credentialed Fair Family, OCF will require all members, volunteers, artists, crafters, performers, and vendors, as well as their accompanied children, ages 5 and up, to provide proof of full COVID-19 vaccination as defined by the CDC. This includes everyone attending with a worker day pass, SO pass, VIP pass, and trade pass. Children 4 years of age and under are not required to be vaccinated. Our safety plan for patrons. OCF will require all public attendees to provide proof of full COVID-19 vaccinations as defined by the CDC, with the option of a religious or medical exemption in compliance with the ADA regulations in the form of a negative PCR COVID-19 test administered by a licensed test provider, laboratory, or healthcare provider 24 hours prior to the date of entry in order to attend the fair in 2022. Children under 5 years old are not required to be vaccinated. Attendees without vaccinations for the patrons only. Let's see. Attendees unable to be vaccinated will be required to show proof of negative PCR COVID-19 test taken within 24 hours prior to event attendance. This applies only to those who have a religious exemption or a medical exemption in compliance with ADA regulations. Children under 5 years old are not required to be vaccinated and are not required to provide a negative COVID test.
Can I amend that language just a skosh? I would recommend that
Yes.
it has a full primary series, because that way, like, full is a bit nebulous. So it should say a full primary series of a approved vaccine.
COVID-19.
Yes.
So,
that way it's clear
right
that
after full.
Full primary series. That way it's clear that what we're talking about are the first 2 shots, the 1 shot from J&J. And I'm happy to talk to operations about implementing. I mean, there are lots of international vaccines, but we don't have to allow those as options. And I'm also happy to review them if there are some international volunteers that we're just not sure about. I'm happy to help look those over. But that way it's clear, because the CDC, as we all know, has been changing what they mean by things on a regular basis. There was a change today. So I think we're very clear.
Let's take this one step at a time. Spirit, do you accept?
Yes.
So
Dr.
we'd be
Cooley
asked
primary.
for an amendment.
You don't need to. I do. I could just make the amendment, right, as the maker.
You can.
Yes.
Does Sandra second
yeah,
accept
I'm good.
adding
Yeah.
primary series?
Mhm.
Has anyone been adjusting this in a text document and can put it in the chat for all of the visual comprehenders around?
I didn't type it. Oh, may take a second to get to. I was thinking, Sam, come on, Sam. I'm just kidding.
I got the timer going. I got too much stuff.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I'm just teasing you.
I'd like to point out that with all these people, it's not good for us to be doing other things on our computers. I apologize, but we do this all the time. We amend the motions and we amend them. So let's move forward, please.
So let's move forward. You don't need me to type it out. I mean, that makes it easier.
Okay, so it's the motion. I just want to have full clarity. It's the motion that's on the .NET site minus the phrase about proving your exemption and adding the phrase full primary series. Okay, so with that, we vote. AJ, we're going to go in alphabetical order. AJ?
Well, shit. Being the first one here. Yes.
George?
Yes.
Oh, someone put in the chat, and I just want to clarify before we finish voting. A yes vote means to remove the booster requirement, just to simplify it. Voting yes removes the booster requirement. So AJ, is your vote still yes? With that clarification, doesn't change the text?
Yes.
Okay, George, still yes?
Yes.
Great. John?
No.
I vote yes. Lisa?
No.
Paxton?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
Spirit?
Yes.
Sue?
I'm sorry. I know this is going to disappoint everyone. I abstain.
So in abstaining, that brings us to 9 board members voting. So the vote would have required 6 to pass. It passes with 7. John and Lisa opposed, Sue abstaining. So the motion carries to amend the vaccine policy. Thank you, everyone. Let's have a meeting evaluation where we just turn our cameras on and show an emotion that describes your meeting evaluation, not the result of the vote, but for how the meeting went. So everyone's invited to turn on your cameras if you feel so moved, and just show us the motion or give us a movement about the format and flow of the meeting, whether you felt the room was respectful, whether you felt like we engaged in our business. Not necessarily the result of the vote, but we'll try meeting evaluation this way. Oh, can people not turn their videos on? Yeah, people should be able to start their videos. And I'm seeing, you know, not a lot either way, some thumbs up. Okay. I hope that we don't have to do another special meeting with such brief format, brief guardrails. That feels as confining as on schedule, but let's hope we don't have to engage in more meetings that are this emotionally and politically and charged and is divisive. So the next board meeting is Monday, June 6th at 7 p.m. online and virtual as per usual. Please join us then. At that meeting, I'll announce the next president's piece. And I just want to give everyone as much heads up. that the July meeting we hold at the end of June. We call it the June-July meeting. It is going to be 4 p.m. June 26th on-site in Alice's, and that one we're going to work on having be a hybrid meeting, so online and in person. Just a heads up if you're planning for that. So that brings us to the president's piece, the last portion of tonight's meeting. I know tonight was really difficult, and we came to a decision. I, for one, didn't know how I was going to vote at the beginning of the meeting. And so I don't think anybody knew exactly what was going to happen tonight. This has been really difficult. Like, we had to balance health and safety, inclusion, fun, cries for acknowledging what a disabling event this is, COVID is, considering whether we should be having our event in this milieu, what the principles of alternative lifestyles are, what it means to be a part of a community, what science is, how we create an event that nourishes the spirit, which is our mission. COVID and like the vaccine and the 2.5 years that have brought us to today has been so damaging to our world and to our own local community. Like, what I would love is for us to not continue to let this tear us apart. This is really divisive. This is really hard. But we know that this is a transition year. It's going to be a rebuilding year. No matter what decision we made tonight, there were going to be people who felt shut out by the decision, or who felt that for their own safety, they couldn't join us this year. We knew that. For that, I personally am greatly saddened. I'm really sorry. I know the event won't be the same without everyone who's unable to join us this year. But we open our hearts to you. We open our arms to you. We will be here next year. We will begin work immediately after the fair this year to find ways to be safe and inclusive for all in 2023, so that we can include everyone in a way that is safe, that is inclusive, that does honor who we are and the personal choices that we all bring to our ability to engage in public events. We love you. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work on this. Sam, would you ring us out?
Board. Thank you, board. We appreciate you.